Hey everybody, this is the UFC 220 review. And I'm going to tell you this is not going to be my best review because I've been awake for almost 24 hours. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And unfortunately, a lot of these fighters I'm not very familiar with. But this was a very good show, packed to the fucking gills with knockouts and some grueling fucking contests. The first fight I want to talk about is on the undercard. It was not the feature prelim, but it was definitely the premier undercard and should be hands down the knockout of the night. That would be the fight between Sabah Homasi versus Abdul Razak Alhassan. Alhassan is a very, very large black man. And even though this was a welterweight bout, Alhassan looked like he outweighed his opponent by like 30 pounds. He looked almost Yoel Romero size in there. Not quite that huge, but fucking huge. And just rippling with that. Just, you can't teach that muscle. And I got to tell you, Sabah Homasi put on a great, slick striking. He was pretty good with his kicks. But unfortunately, as the fight got into the later rounds, he slowed down. And let me tell you, you guys are on notice in the welterweight division coming up, especially any of you guys ranked between 10th and 15. Alhassan hits like a fucking truck, and he can time an uppercut like nobody's business. And he fucking curled the toes and fucking rolled the eyes back of Homasi. He fucking destroyed him. Very impressed. Keep an eye out for this welterweight, Abdul Razak Alhassan. Total fucking badass. We're going to get to the main card here. Rob Font versus Thomas Almeida. I'm a big Thomas Almeida fan. I loved watching him choke dudes out, but he's been having a rough time of it lately. He's lost 2 of his last 3 fights. Now, one of those was a loss to fucking Cody No Love Garbrandt, so it's against top shelf talent. But he still was not favored against his opponent, who was ranked one below him. They were ranked 10th and 11th, respectively, in the world. Even though he was ranked above Rob Font, who I've seen fight once before this, was the favorite. And Almeida, who I'm more used to seeing him kind of choke dudes a little bit more often. But it turns out that I was kind of wrong about that, and it's highly possible I was mistaking him for maybe Charles Oliveira. But he has some good striking, and he's very long, but Rob Font is even fucking longer. Both of these guys are long as sin for the bantamweight division. And even though Almeida looked good in there, Rob Font looked better. And he kept catching Almeida, and before long, Almeida was rocked early in the second, and he just kept getting rocked and rocked and rocked until he got face planted. And he got pounded the fuck out in a really brutal TKO. He probably got hurt real bad. So I feel really bad for him, but hey, Rob Font is an absolute killer. He took the best shots coming back, and even though I make it sound like Almeida got his ass beat, no, he got his licks in on Rob Font. It was a real close, really good fight. Coming up next, we have Gian Villante versus, what was this guy's name again? Yes, Francima Barrosa. Both these guys were basically kickboxers. Barrosa sort of more of a Muay Thai-ish Brazilian, while Gian Villante is, I guess, technically a kickboxer, but I would describe Gian Villante as an old-school bruiser. Gian Villante is a relic of a bygone era. He walks forward, he eats your punches, and he punches you harder. And that's the way this fight went. I believe that, how do I say this guy's? Francima Barros was in better shape, but he seemed intimidated by Gian Villante, because he hit Gian Villante hard, and Gian Villante did the, no you didn't. And he fucking smashed Gian Villante's nose and all that shit, and Gian Villante's like, no you didn't. And he just kept coming. And Gian is a really wild, lanky, weird puncher, and his kicks are telegraphed from the next light year over. His kicks we use to communicate long distance with astronauts in the space station. Like, holy shit. Beep, 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 beep. Telegraphs those kicks. Didn't land hardly shit when it came to kicks. Well, he landed great, superbly powerful leg kicks behind his boxing, but he would throw these crazy head kicks. And believe it or not, he actually landed one, I believe. But other than that, really, it was just that Gian Villante has what I like to call the intangible of killer instinct. Gian Villante is not afraid of you. And you might beat Gian Villante. You might be faster than him. You might be stronger than him. But you have two problems. One, Gian Villante has some of the highest takedown defense in the entirety of the UFC light heavyweight division. And second, Gian Villante will come forward no matter what you do. You could break his nose, you could concuss him, you could fuck him up. We saw it against Shogun Rua. We literally saw Gian Villante fight Shogun Rua until one man could not stand. And that day was Gian Villante, and he was also, guys, on a losing streak and kind of really needed to win one, where he's lost, I think, 3 of his last 4 or something. Really rough. But he beat the shit out of a clearly unready for the big show, Francisma Barros, and cruised his way to a very dominant split decision. What the fuck? One of the judges was on drugs. 30-27, 29-28 Barros, what the fuck? 30-27 Villante again. It was the most ludicrous split decision ever. It could have easily been a 30-26. Villante kicked his ass. And it was mostly because I just don't think that Barros had the nerve. And by the time he got the nerve, he didn't have the cardio, if you follow me. Now we're getting into the crazy last 3 fights. All 3 of which were amazing and did not go the way you might expect. 2 guys I've never seen fight. Actually, I believe I may have seen Shane Burgos fight, but I'm actually not sure of that. So I didn't know who these 2 smaller fighters were. I believe they were featherweights. Calvin Kattar is something of, I guess, a hometown boy for the Boston crowd, even though they said he was from New York. Maybe he's from Boston. He did compliment the Patriots, as many fighters did. Fighting Shane Burgos. Shane Burgos certainly had the killer instinct. The man was utterly fearless and took 8 billion jabs and rocked Calvin Kattar multiple times. The thing is, Calvin Kattar is probably one of the best boxers, just pure boxers, I've seen since Cody No Love Garbrandt. The man is a former Golden Gloves champion and has a few professional kickboxing bouts. He was denied a contract at one point with the UFC, but Shane Burgos' opponent, original scheduled opponent, whose name escapes me at the moment, I'm sorry, dropped out, and Calvin got the call up. And this was fight of the night. And anybody who says otherwise is a fucking liar. Calvin Kattar and Shane Burgos beat the fucking shit out of each other for 3 rounds. It was fucking amazing. Shane struggled to deal with Calvin's head movement, so Burgos resorted to some very vicious Miles Jury-esque body punches. Just fucking wham-bam-bam, I will punch what you give me. And just kept running at him and started really kicking his leg pretty hard, to the point where, in much the same way as Barros was able to do to Villante, started slowing his opponent down. But the thing was, Calvin Kattar is somewhat reminiscent of Nate Diaz in that he will disguise the very power of his punches. Forget how excellent that this man was with feints. Ridiculously good with slipping and pulling. And pulling is a very complicated boxing technique that a lot of people aren't familiar with. You'll see shoulder rolls where you kind of take a punch off your shoulder and protect your chin and kind of lean back so the punch kind of goes whoosh, and it makes a noise, but it hit your shoulder, it didn't hit you. But he was a master of knowing not just his own range, but his opponent's range. He knew Burgos' range. So Burgos would try to throw a jab back because he had busted Burgos' nose over and over and over again with jabs. And Burgos got him back with some real good left hooks to the point where it looked like he badly cut across the sort of the blade of the bone of the nose. Really badly cut his nose right there. And it looked pretty ugly. Burgos was pretty fearless, but he just wasn't able to land his shots. And he slowed down just enough. And the thing was, almost every one of the bazillion, just ridiculously high accuracy punches that Kattar landed on Burgos, they're mostly jabs. And not very strong jabs and sort of snappy right hands. A lot of 1-2, a little bit of a hook here and there, a couple of body kicks. And Kattar was absorbing much more kicks, but, sticking to his boxing. And by the third round, it looked like Qatar might lose. The second round was very close. The first round, I think Qatar did lose because he spent almost the whole first round just learning, just downloading Burgos. Didn't throw a whole bunch. Mostly looked for the range and absorbed a fair amount of punishment. Clearly lost the first round. I think Qatar won a close second round. And then in the first round, the third, when Burgos really started slowing down, all of a sudden, one time, that right straight came at Burgos, and it didn't come at 30, and it didn't come at 50, and it didn't come at 60. He went fucking Ivan Drago via Rocky 3 and with the doom! And all of a sudden, it went from, oh, I've been jabbed, oh, I've been crossed, to his head went whoosh, and he went flying back. And then he got pounded the fuck out. And yeah, he just fucking greased the guy to deafening cheers. This guy who the UFC wasn't originally going to give a chance to, well, the crowd decided they fucking loved Calvin Kattar and they want more. And he is going to climb those featherweight ranks, people. He was great. Excuse me a second. And here is the co-main event of the evening. And ladies and gentlemen, here's where the hype train stops and derails and falls down a cliff and ends in a burning wreck where there were no survivors. I need a drink. I'm very sorry. I've been yelling at my television. So, Volkan No Time Oezdemir. I have called this man the future. This man is the future. But he was facing one of the greatest of all time, Daniel, the real American hero, DC Cormier. Cormier came in looking nervous. Now, clearly, this is a man who John Jones lives rent-free in his head. This man is tormented to the point of agonizing, clearly, to the point of tears, grown man tears, whenever he loses. And he was moved to tears after this fight as well. But was it for the reason you think? Well, he came in kind of sloppy and pawing at Volkan Oezdemir. Volkan Oezdemir is 3 inches taller than Daniel Cormier, who's short even for a light heavyweight, let alone heavyweight, which he used to fight at, the fucking maniac. And Volkan Oezdemir's tall and large, and also clearly cuts quite a bit of weight. And Volkan Oezdemir was about 4 inches longer as well. And Daniel Cormier's defense was worrying very early. Pawed and just tried to stop Oezdemir and get closer to Oezdemir by just pawing at him. And dipping his head in the exact same way that got him head kick KO'd by John Jones. Trying to slip punches by doing this, just like with his whole fucking body. And he paid the price for it. Oezdemir timed him like twice and just turned his whole, left eye into just swelling all the way across the top of it. And clearly Oezdemir still has the power, because bam, all of a sudden the lights came on DC like, oh my god, I need to grapple this man now. But I would have said Oezdemir had won the first round, except for at the end, DC took him down and almost slammed him, but just ended up getting the single leg because Oezdemir's really tall and was able to just push his head all the way fucking down from way the fuck up here. So he couldn't really get any leverage, but he was able to dump him down with a nice twisting single leg and twice I think he took him down in the first, once at the trip. And Oezdemir was saved by the clock as DC secured a rear naked choke right before the bell. Oezdemir clearly was baffled by just how powerful the grappling of Daniel Cormier is. And let me tell you, in the second round, Volkan Oezdemir was again surprised by just how hard Daniel Cormier punches. Because they started winging haymakers at each other. And Cormier was able to not really take really rough shots, and he hit some nuclear lead left hands on Oezdemir, which Oezdemir took like he didn't give a shit. But he had been really worn out because Cormier fights that kind of Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is a teammate of his over at American Kickboxing Academy, that Cain Velasquez, Nurmagomedov, Cormier style, which is make this man wear you like a coat of lead. And he made Oezdemir wear him. And by the second round, Oezdemir, who's not very familiar with a lot of fights going beyond like 2 minutes, looked visibly tired. And that's the thing about these higher weight classes, people. They can sometimes not be the most exciting fights because the amount of energy it takes to move that kind of muscle around and to carry the kind of muscle of your opponent produces rapid slowdown. So Daniel Cormier got out of the no time period, the first 3 minutes. And the second round, he beat Oezdemir boxing, and Oezdemir kept hitting him. And let me tell you, my heart is still beating, and I'm still just adrenaline shocked. And I didn't blink for the entirety of either of these last 2 fights, because any time that Volkan Oezdemir even just taps you behind the ear, you're gone. The man has H-bombs. He has Zarbombas in his goddamn hands. And he laid those on DC everywhere it counts. He punched him in the mouth, punched him in the temple, punched him in the eye, punched him behind the ear. And DC, ladies and gentlemen, has the fucking chin, okay? He really fucking does. Because he just ate that shit for breakfast. And basically used his wrestling, dragged Oezdemir down, got the mount, and then when Oezdemir tried to fish out the, hip escape into the half guard, he didn't really know how to secure it. He looked tired, he was overpowered, and he'd been rocked multiple times. So, almost like the UFC 2 video game, which you would want to do if you were playing Daniel Cormier as a fighter, you would actually want to surrender the mount, move into side control, pin the guy's arm with your knee, and secure his other arm with an underhook with your other, therefore exposing his head in such a way that he can't reach and defend himself. And Cormier just laid on top of him and just gave him the old crucifix, 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 crucifix for about 60 seconds straight. And basically looked, after this fight was eventually called a TKO, as Oezdemir was completely incapable of defending himself. He wasn't knocked out, he was TKO'd. He was incapable of stopping it. It was much like if anybody, when I first became a UFC fan watching The Ultimate Fighter during the year that Big Country Roy Nelson won by beating famed MMA podcaster now, holy shit, how did I forget his name? Holy shit, Brendan Schaub. My apologies, Brendan Schaub, if by some random fucking reason you ever watched this. And Kimbo Slice was on. And Kimbo Slice faced Roy Nelson in the first round and got crucifix just like that. And but even just these short 6-inch punches made marks in the shape of the first 2 knuckles of Daniel Cormier's hands. Here, 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 all over Oezdemir's face. He got thoroughly outclassed, hype train fucking derailed. We will see No Time again. I believe we will see No Time with a belt around his waist, provided he doesn't go to prison for punching the fuck out of people in bars. Although this looks like a clear case of do not touch my girlfriend, I will fucking destroy you. And that's probably what happened to that guy. He's probably going to beat the charges. It's all gravy. And I, respect the fuck out of Volkan Oezdemir. A huge fan, but I'm an even huger Daniel Cormier fan. And you better believe I was fucking just jizzing at my pants. He's back, baby. DC is for fucking real. Respect. But now, this is what everybody was really waiting for. What kind of fight could possibly overshadow and completely just overtake the entire hype train of the return of Daniel Cormier, who, let me say, was, again, the best guy, whether in victory and defeat, and giving post-fight speeches. He was gracious to his opponent. He said, he was re-awarded the title, and he never once said in a single interview, I am the champion. John Jones beat me. John Jones is suspended. This title is vacant. I am now the champion because I beat Volkan Oezdemir. And he wants John Jones to come back because he was still crying and obviously still thinking, I'm not the champ until I really beat John Jones. You can see that the man is haunted by anybody who beats him. But holy shit, Volkan Oezdemir wasn't the one. But Francis, the Predator Ngannou, literally the hardest puncher in the history of the UFC, possibly in the history of boxing. I don't know, maybe George Foreman has something to say about that. But, Jesus Christ, not a lot of people were giving him a chance. Fans voted. 53% actually said that Stipe Miocic was going to leave the champion. The Vegas odds had Francis the Predator Ngannou as a slight favorite. What nobody would ever say was that this fight would go the distance, because Stipe Miocic has meteors for hands, and Francis the Predator Ngannou has K2 boundary extinction level comets. This just couldn't have possibly gone the distance, ladies and gentlemen. Could it have? It did. What the fuck, right? Two of the hardest punchers ever to fucking fight for the title. And it went 5 rounds. And I'll tell you why. Francis, in an attempt to confuse Stipe, I think, came in southpaw position. And Stipe was immediately scared as looping lead right hands were coming towards him. And remember that I believe, and I may be completely wrong about this, even though I've watched most of his fights, I believe Francis Ngannou is right-handed, and his regular stance is orthodox. However, he knocked out, Alistair the Ream Overeem, or the Demolition Man, whatever the fuck he's calling himself now, with a southpaw left-handed uppercut. So the man can strike with an 84-inch reach, only just slightly shorter than John Jones, who is basically like LeBron James level reach. And he can hit from wide-ass angles and punches you just don't see. Because they'll come from the hip. They'll come from the fucking first row over to the right. And he hit Stipe. And Stipe was just... and his face just went... and his eye was... and I'm like, oh God. He has the McGregor touch of death. Like, even if he didn't knock you out with that punch, your face is just like... like, holy fucking shit, bro. So, clearly... what's the word I'm looking for? Stipe Miocic has a chin. Because he took both left and right hands that should have sent him, like Alistair Overeem, into the fucking... African space program. Just, but no. And in fact, by the end of the first round, Stipe hit him back with the fucking freight train, just throwing all his whole body like a fucking movie, like the right cross that's more of an overhand, just like wham, just wham, and hit Ngannou right in the mouth and split his big African lips. Say it's racist or whatever, but he has very large lips. Whoosh, right down the middle. Just blood running down his chin. And Ngannou was like, I've never been hit like that before. What happened? And before he could figure out what happened, he got slammed up against the cage. And Miocic said, you are going to wear me like a 250-pound backpack for the rest of this round, and I'm going to try to choke you to death. And he didn't succeed. Second round, Ngannou was clearly already going... And so was Stipe, but Stipe was like, I have a face. And then Stipe fucking took him down and just laid on him for like the whole second round after they punched each other in the face a couple times. And believe me, anytime any one of their punches even just like brushed, it was like, because they're dealing. It's like watching two people fight with sledgehammers. Okay, it might be one strike, but the one strike might be the person getting a full on with their whole body sledgehammer into your head, which means they're gonna die. Like, it doesn't matter who hits who, any punch, the whole crowd, you could hear the air just get sucked out of the whole stadium as everybody gasps. It's crazy. And oh man, did Stipe's face get busted up. They were just holding ice into his head the whole time. And oh, it looked bad. It looked real bad. But Stipe basically tired himself out by just laying on Ngannou. And by round 3, Ngannou didn't want to fight no more. Ngannou threw... like the first round was like 24 strikes for Miocic to 21 strikes for Ngannou. Round 2 was like, I think less than 10 strikes for Ngannou, and then like 40 or 50 for Miocic. And then there was a few, it was about the same for round 3. And then round 4, I don't know how, like, I know that 10-8s are really rare unless you're fighting under the new unified rules. All 3 judges gave Stipe Miocic a 10-8 against Francis Ngannou. They should have gave him a 10-5. Ngannou did not land a single strike in round 4, and Stipe Miocic landed like 60 because he just got on top of him and just started punching him and punching him and punching him and punching him and punching him in the face from backside mount, basically. Just wham, 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 wham. And he's looking at the ref and he's like, how many times do I have to hit him? And the ref's like, you're not hitting him that hard. And Stipe Miocic's like, I know, I'm really tired. Wham, 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 wham. Stipe Miocic looks at like Dana White like, come on. And then he looks at Herb Dean, and Herb Dean's like, come on. Wham, 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 wham. Miocic is just like, I'm so tired. Stop fucking hitting me. Stop fucking hitting me. Stop fucking hitting me. Gets up and wanders like a fucking zombie, just like, finish him. Just like wobbling like it's Mortal Kombat. And then the 5th round, the exact same thing happens. They exchange a couple blows. Ngannou can't even hold his hands up to his face. His hands are at his waist. And he's just, and Stipe is like, come on, motherfucker. Just whap, whap, takedown, laid on him, wham, 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 wham. And Miocic actually couldn't hold him down for all of the 5th round. And by about 2.5 minutes to go, Ngannou was back at his feet. And yeah, you gotta admit, Miocic was on his bicycle. Because he was ahead 1 billion rounds to none. And at the end of the 4th, Ngannou proved he could still hit Miocic hard enough to rock him. Just, oh my god, I let him hit me on my fucking face. Like, you could see him just go like, oh my god, don't hit me anymore. Like, because anytime, even when Ngannou had long since looked like he was about to literally pass, and I mean literally pass out from exhaustion, like Dada 5000 pass out from exhaustion, he still managed to almost send fucking Miocic's teeth into the fucking back row. So Miocic was on his bicycle, and Ngannou, with 2.5 minutes to go, stalking Miocic, still kept getting hit with jabs and leg kicks and body kicks, and Ngannou threw one Superman punch from across the fucking state of Massachusetts, and it missed by a mile. So Stipe Miocic, the hype train, ladies and gentlemen, derailed, destroyed Francis Ngannou effortlessly to become the first man in history to defend the UFC heavyweight title 3 times in a row. Stipe Miocic is the greatest heavyweight of all time, and the lack of respect that he gets due to the fact that he is not a very charismatic man. He's a man of very few words, very blunt, not prone to showmanship, not prone to trash talk, not particularly interesting looking, although he is a good looking guy with some cool tattoos, and of course he's a heavyweight, he looks awesome, but it seemed like everybody really wanted Ngannou, the Cinderella story, the man who had been homeless and worked digging sand in a mine 5 years before challenging for the world heavyweight title. Everybody wanted that Cinderella story. And I was mostly rooting for Stipe Miocic because, first of all, I like Stipe Miocic, and I think Stipe Miocic is a fighter. Like, the man is for real and is all business. No talk, all business. The business of knocking motherfuckers the fuck out. And also with an extremely high fight IQ, who reminded everybody that he's a superb fucking wrestler because he just dominated. And Joe Rogan, John Anik, and Dominic Cruz were commentating, and they're all saying Miocic does not know how to get up. I mean, Curtis Blades had taken Ngannou down before, and Ngannou just through brute strength got back up. Well, brute strength wasn't going to serve him against Stipe Miocic, even though he outweighed Stipe Miocic by about 20 pounds. And that's just because Stipe was a collegiate level wrestler. I don't know if I think he was an All-American. I'm not certain of that. I don't know if he was ever any kind of champion or whatever, but he is collegiately trained for a real wrestler. And he just showed that Miocic doesn't know how to pummel for underhooks. Miocic doesn't know how to hip escape out of, or he doesn't know how to resecure a guard. He doesn't know how to fight off certain hooks that prevent him from getting his leg out of a half guard or a tight half guard or a sort of a semi-side control position. He just, all of the tricks that you're really supposed to know if you have any jiu-jitsu training or even just some good wrestling training. Miocic didn't know. His genetic freak powers could not take him past this fight. So that's UFC 220. I'm very happy for Daniel Cormier. I'm sorry for Thomas Almeida. I really like him. I'm glad Gian Villante won. No matter what you think of his fighting style, he's very bombastic and great on the mic. Gian Villante is a fans fighter. He will go and slug like it's 2004. And I'm very happy for Calvin Kattar, and I really look forward to following his career. The man is probably the best pure boxer I've seen in a very long time in the UFC. He's phenomenal. And I feel bad for Volkan Oezdemir, but he will come back. And his manhandling of Jimmy Manuwa, I think, really proved that he should probably fight... I want to say he should fight... Gustafsson, because unfortunately there's been an emptying out of the light heavyweight division due to losses of fighters and guys getting let go and shit, and John Jones repeatedly being John Jones, Rashad Evans going down, Machida going down in weight, all that kind of shit happening. So there's nobody really except for Manuwa, Oezdemir, Gustafsson, Cormier. The rest of the light heavyweight division is kind of unproven and not at all on those guys' level. And Cormier, proved he was well above Oezdemir's level. So with no John Jones, I don't see how Cormier doesn't retire with the belt around his waist. As for Francis Ngannou, he'll be back. I think he needs a change of camp. I believe he's still kind of working with the same people who originally he started out with. I think he needs to move on to a much more top-tier organization who will fill in the holes in his game and give him more than just raw power and pretty dynamic striking, at least with his hands. Doesn't really demonstrate any particular mastery of kicks. He's bad in the clinch. He's bad on the ground. He's bad at takedown defense, and he's bad at takedowns. So he needs a lot of work. Very basic outside of his boxing. And Miocic very thoroughly outclassed him. Because the thing that I think nobody respected Miocic about is Miocic hits as hard as anybody, except for Ngannou. It's like Hunt, who Miocic beat the shit out of. Maybe Dos Santos is no longer in the company. Miocic beat the shit out of, even though he lost once. I don't know if anybody actually really hits harder than him except for Ngannou anymore. I don't know if Mark Hunt still has that kind of power, and a lot of the other badass power punchers and prospects for the heavyweight division have left or retired early, and the heavyweight division is in real disarray. I think Stefan Struve has been let go, Dos Santos has been let go, Roy Nelson's been let go. The heavyweight division is in shambles and is in severe need of rejuvenating talent, and maybe with the exception of Marcin Tybura, which Alexander Gustafsson beat the shit out of, I'm not seeing good talent at light heavyweight. And in heavyweight, I don't know if there's hardly anybody who's up and coming that I've really liked what I've seen out of. And the loss of Derek Lewis as well has been just horrendous. And Travis Brown, Ronda Rousey's gym, what's the fuck's that guy named? Mr. Head Movement ruined him before, his career ruined him, Travis Brown. Brendan Schaub retired, so everybody from when I started watching till now is out of the heavyweight division, and it's just, I don't see where Doom getting the title back. It's, they really need new talent. But there's nothing but bright shining stars coming up at welterweight, nothing but bright shining stars at lightweight. Same with featherweight. It's going to be a great year, everybody, and this was a very good pay-per-view. It might not have been as good as the last one I reviewed for you guys, but this pay-per-view was worth watching. There was fantastic knockouts, edge-of-your-seat nail-biter, the two final fights, even though they were kind of one-sided, they were terrifying, because at no point is the Predator or No Time ever out of a fight, ever. As long as they can still punch you, you are at risk. There's no just completely defeating them, even when Ngannou looked like he was barely conscious. He was still capable of killing Miocic, and, very almost did. So I'm surprised at how long this was, but that's the whole thing, ladies and gentlemen. I would still recommend it. You definitely got to at least look up highlights of this. I really am surprised at virtually everybody who won the fights I listed to you, except for Al Hassan. I definitely had picked to win. I had Gian Villante picked to win. I didn't know enough about Kamaru Burgos to pick, and I love both of these guys, and I really look forward to watching both of them. I thought Ozdemir was going to beat Cormier and end his career, but I keep second guessing Cormier, even though I love him, and shame on my bitch ass for doing that. Daniel Cormier is the truth, and I honestly thought Ngannou was going to wipe out Miocic in the first round, but it's not anything I would have ever put money on, because I did have this sneaking suspicion. I was kind of almost 50-50 on it, to be a fence-sitting pussy about it, that I really thought Miocic could take him into the later rounds that Ngannou had never seen and pound him out. And it pretty much went that way. So I was half right. Hedge your bets. Love you guys. See you again soon.